Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
I bring you this edition of Cut the Clutter from pole-bound Chhattisgarh. Now, Chhattisgarh is a very well-endowed state. It's a beautiful state. It has natural wealth, great forest cover. It has also great mineral wealth. It has also built some infrastructure over time. It also has some industry. And yet, you mostly hear about Chhattisgarh because of troubles there, including in these elections. The voting in the 18 most sensitive constituencies where Maoists are most active has just ended, but the fact is that focus remains on those areas, and what happens in those areas will also reflect in voting and campaigning in other areas. Now, what is the story? The story is that the large Bastar region is very poorly governed. It has always been very poorly governed. It was earlier ruled by a Raja. The Raja led some kind of a rebellion, or what was called a rebellion, and police was sent in. This is in the mid-60s, and he was killed. Since then, there has been no center of gravity in that region. The state government has been callous, as it usually all governments are for distant regions. This was part of Madhya Pradesh earlier. So, because state's authority did not exist, over time first tribal groups and then Maoist groups came and took control. There is a ongoing tussle now between the state administration and security forces, mainly the CRP and state police, and the Naxalites or Maoists as we call them. Over the past say 20 years or so, this has peaked. I would say this peaked around time Mr. Chidambaram was India's home minister and that big massacre in Chintalnar took place. 76 CRP people were killed and their weapons taken away. It's a lot of weapons. And then a few more incidents happened and the government hit back strongly. Now I would say militarily, tactically as we say, the situation is the balance of power is shifting towards security forces, but yet Maoists are very active. Even during the election campaign, we have seen them carry out many IED explosions, many ambushes. A journalist has lost his life along with many other policemen. A BSF person has lost his life. This has been a pretty fraught election from the point of view of Maoist violence. In the middle of all this, where does politics come in? Mr. Modi started it by saying that his party was fighting the Naxalites while the Congress was mixed up with them and Congress was embedded with what he called as urban Naxals. That's a loose sort of pejorative term used for intellectuals in our cities and in our sort of left elite who seem to have a sympathy or who are alleged to have sympathy with the Maoist cause. And he said Congress was embedded with them. Congress took 48 hours to respond and said, oh, look who's talking. These Naxalites are the ones who wiped out the top leadership of our party in the same states, that is Mr. Vidyacharan Shukla and many others with him. They were all killed in one ambush. Now, the point is, why has it taken the Congress so long to say this? For 15 years now, BJP is in control in Chhattisgarh. If Congress was thinking sharply, Congress could have started this campaign in the state by saying for 15 years you are in control, law and order is the state government's responsibility. How come you've not been able to put down Naxal violence? But Congress did not do it. The reason Congress was not able to do it, in my view, and that's the point I'm trying to declutter from your minds, is because Congress intellectually and philosophically has been torn on this. Congress does realize that Naxals are a great threat to India. In fact, remember, it was Dr. Manmohan Singh, Congress's own Prime Minister, who called armed Maoists the biggest internal security threat to India. And yet, the Congress High Command or some leaders have sort of equivocated in their fight against the Naxals. So, you found that some of these Naxal sympathizers, I don't want to say urban Naxals, they just happen to live in cities, or people who say, but look at the root causes, just as in Kashmir, Pakistanis say, look at the root causes for terrorism. In Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand and Odisha also, several of our intellectuals say, look for the root causes of armed Maoism. So root causes, people found some hearing with Mrs. Gandhi, Gandhi family, and Congress party at a certain level. So Congress party's own leaders, including Digvijay Singh, sabotaged the campaign at that point to fight Maoists. But Congress party was only in the center. The main job is being done by the state government. Now for 15 years, if the state government has not been able to put it down, they've made progress, new roads are being built, administration is reaching new places, but they've not been able to put it down to the extent they should have. It's a failure. And the reason it's a failure, I believe, and there is plenty of evidence available, that at local levels, at the state level and then also at district level, politicians, there is a nexus between politicians, armed Maoists and corporate groups. Corporate groups, because they have to do business there, they have to set up factories, they have to mine, so they pay protection money or ransom to Naxalites. That's what keeps Naxalites going and gives them resources. Naxalites on the other hand, politicians on the other hand, want protection from Naxalites, so they don't come and kill them. It's a straightforward ransom for life. And second, also for help during elections, etc., etc. And everybody shares in this spoil. In my view, I might annoy a lot of people, but I'd say that most of the Maoism today has lost its ideological or its moral or its philosophical meaning. Right now, most of these Maoist activists are armed groups, each running their own giroh, much like the dacoits of the past. It's a great pity that Government of India, with all its might, has not been able to counter them and finish them. And frankly, it's a bigger pity that the Congress party, instead of starting this campaign, is now reacting as if they are on the defensive. There is a history to movements like this in India. They follow a parabolic curve. The violence peaks at some point, the state response also peaks. At some point, a point comes on this curve when the leaders of the violent movements realize that no matter what happens, they might have the odd successful ambush, but they will not be able to achieve what they want. And that is when they are willing to negotiate, and that's when the Indian state and armed insurgents negotiate and come to a settlement. We've seen this happen in Mizoram, Nagaland, Assam, even Gorkhaland, although it wasn't quite an armed insurgency. That's how insurgencies end in India. I see the Maoist insurgency in East Central India only ending that way. It is just that it has taken too long. And the reason it's taken too long is that once again, politics, corporate groups and Maoists, now they have this complex web of nexuses, and that is what is holding this region to ransom. So hopefully this election will will move us further in the direction of resolution of this continuing crisis.